Infinite Looper is a MIDI looping app from Secret Base Design. In this video, we're going to give a quick overview of what it does. If you're a musician, you're probably familiar with audio loopers, which let you play a riff or a chord progression, and then overdub another track on top of it. There are tons of looping pedals and plenty of audio looping apps in the iTunes Store. With Infinite Looper, we've adapted this idea to MIDI. You can loop MIDI phrases and control synthesizers, building up multiple layers of sound. With MIDI, you can either play live and record that, or you can approach things like you would with a step sequencer. So here's the app. Start up with the menu that'll let you open an existing project. And for this video, we're going to start from scratch and put together a little chord progression with a few instruments. Alright, in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see some buttons. The triangle is obviously play, circle for recording. You've got a metronome to toggle the metronome on and off. And also the 120 is the tempo. If you tap on that, it'll bring up a dialog box where you can change the tempo for the project and also turn on and off Ableton Link. Below that is quantization. So if you want to record MIDI and snap everything to quarter notes or eighth notes or whatever, simply toggle one of those on. If it's the X, quantization is turned off and the music will just be recorded as you play it. Next to that is the length of the loops that you're going to be recording. You can go 1 measure, 2 measures, 4, all the way up to 64 measures. It should be easy to double or divide by 2, or increase or decrease the length by 1 measure. And finally, to the right of that is going to be a beat and measure marker telling you which beat you're on, which measure you're on of part of the loop. Along the top, there are columns for 6 different synthesizer instruments. We've got a piano, an organ, some drums, and a few other things ready to go. The app uses an internal SoundFont engine, and you can add other iOS synth apps using inter-app audio, or you can control external synth hardware. The piano keyboard at the bottom of the screen does what you'd expect. Tap on the keyboard to play some notes. Tap on a different column to get a different instrument. And each piano keyboard maps to a different drum note. To change the instrument for any of the columns, tap on the gear icon for a dialog box, and then you can select a different instrument. Here, let's switch over to, let's go with a violin. Infinite Looper is also an IAA instrument host, so you can bring in any of the iOS synths that support the standard, and you can also connect to external MIDI hardware. We'll talk a little bit more about that stuff a little bit later on in this video. In addition to the piano keyboard, there are also a bunch of pages of configurable pads. So bring that around and play some chords. Tap on the gear icon, and then you can configure any of the pads with different chords. With 10 different pages, you can do all sorts of configuration. On page 2, we've got things set up for different drum samples. All right, let's put this thing into action. We'll tap on the play button to get things moving, toggle on record, and we can lay down a few drums. We're going to use the pads and use the drum assignments on the pad screen. Alright, a simple little drum riff going. We've got quantization turned on, so everything lines up and snaps exactly to the beat. And we can use a mixer to bring down the drums a little bit in the mix. Let's add a second loop of cymbal. And if you screw up and you don't like it, you can get rid of it pretty easily. Just swipe to the left. And overdub something else. The pads are touch sensitive, so the higher up on the pad you are, the louder it is. And let's try it again, bring it down a little bit. Now we've got the drum loop going, we can toggle off the metronome and maybe do some piano. We're going to change this to length 4 loop, switch the pads over to a set of chords, And we'll see if we can get lucky with some good chords here. Yeah, some mad piano skills there. You can change the length of the loop, and we'll switch over to the piano keyboard and try out a bass line. And if you don't like it, just swipe, go up to four measures, and try it again. Pretty easy. Very quick to get something going. Toggle off our chord. And now if you want to bring in loops, take them back out, simply tap them to turn them on and off. Each instrument has 8 different loops you can choose. You can swing the keyboard down out of the way so you get access to more loops, and they scroll up and down. So far, most of what we've done are features you'd expect in a basic looper. Infinite Looper takes it a little bit further with an arranger, so you can select a set of loops and put them together so you can have a verse, a chorus, a bridge, any sort of component that you'd like to have for assembling a full song. We're going to do that now. We'll tap the Add Section button, and we'll name this loop Intro Drum Loop. So it's just the basic drum pattern playing. You can set it to repeat a different number of times. And now let's toggle on a few more loops, and we'll add another section. We'll add in the bass and the cymbal. We've got a section with that, and then maybe another section with just the piano. We've got 3 sections so far, and then on the outro, we want to just go back to the cymbal, toggle off loops, and hit Add Section again. We're going to switch to song mode, and when you hit play, the loops will switch on and off automatically. The motivation for all of this is so that you can put together a song that's not just one loop cranking away for 4.5 minutes. You can also export MIDI. So this entire arrangement, just tap the Export MIDI button, and the entire sequence, all the sequences and all the sections, will be produced into a standard MIDI file. We're going to import this into Cubasis here so we can keep the video entirely on screen. But you could easily take the MIDI file and send it to Logic or Reaper or whatever DAW you might want on your desktop. Here in Cubasis, you can find the exported MIDI file, just drag it in, and these are the MIDI notes that we just put together with Infinite Looper. We'll switch over and set up the drum kit in Cubasis, and also select a bass patch. And the piano came in as a piano, so we can just leave it as is. And now you can see that the song we just set up, the entire arrangement, has been exported, and we can take it into any other DAW we want, and get different production, different effects, different instruments. The drum kit in Cubasis is pretty overpowering, but we'll go with it for a moment. Pretty easy. You can assemble whatever you want in Infinite Looper, and then send it to another DAW for final processing. If you want to rearrange the sections, add things in, take things out, move things around. Very straightforward. It's a user interface you're probably familiar with. If you tap any of the sections, you can select which loops are running. So if you've got something set up as part of a set, you can have all the loops you want and move between them at any point in time. And there's even a little notepad, so you can jot down notes, anything you want to keep in mind about lyrics, which patches you're using, or routing. Because this is all MIDI, You can also edit notes and fix anything that might have gone wrong in a performance. So here's a piano roll. Simply just do a long press on any of the loops and the piano roll editor opens up. Tapping on a note will remove it. And you can also insert notes. You'll hear the pitch of the note as you insert it. We've got quantization turned on to eighth notes, and that's what's dropping in. You can drag notes around and reposition them. And if you switch, you can also change the volume. Swipe up or down on a note to change the volume. And if you want to make it longer or shorter, you can do that too. The next bit of the user interface to cover is MIDI Learn, so you can actually control Infinite Looper with an external MIDI controller, maybe an FCB 1010, some sort of foot pedal. Here we're using the app Sidecar and in split screen mode on an iPad. You can bring in Sidecar and it will send MIDI notes to whatever your destination is. We've got it configured here to send notes to Infinite Looper, and we can toggle on and off play and do a number of other things. For this part of the demo, we're using Animoog as one of the inter-app audio instruments, so we've got that running, and you can get over to it and fiddle with the patches pretty easily. So now we're going to set up some of the pads, and we've got them set up to add sections. So I can use an external MIDI controller to add a section, and so maybe I'm building up loops as I go along, and I might have different things that get brought in and out. I can create sections, I can move up and down and switch sections all from a remote MIDI controller. So we'll just move back and forth, switch from things in and out. Very straightforward. You can also select different tracks using an external MIDI controller. So we're going to move from the 12-string guitar to others. And again, you don't have to tap on the screen. Just use a MIDI controller. Set up either something like Sidecar. You can use MIDI over Bluetooth, remote control, whatever you want. And there are a few more things to show you. On each of the tracks, you can also disable the internal synth. So if you want to use something other than the internal SoundFont engine or IAA, you can simply toggle off that and then configure the external MIDI. Here we've got it sending MIDI out to an external device on the iTrack dock, and so if we wanted to hook it to a hardware synthesizer, that's very easy to do. And that's the quick start to Infinite Looper. It's available now in the iTunes Store. Check it out, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact us.